Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. Hey, I've been really diving hard into the Conan side of things ever since I started doing these Conan, solo adventures for GURPS. Really enjoying myself. But now that the adventures are over, I got into a little reading myself. I mean, I went down to a comic book shop called Dawson's Geek in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, with my brothers. Of course, my brother, being a comic book artist kind of guy, he just dived into everything. It's a really cool treasure gem down in Dawson's Geek. Basically, the idea is he's just one of those guys that you know will be there because he loves comics. He'll be there because of the economic rise of comics, and he'll be there when he's dead broke on comics. I mean, those are the guys you want to support. So Dawson's Geek in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. But I've been getting the little Conan saga comics, and well, they're more like magazines, and these are really good reads. That's the thing I did notice about Conan books is for as much as you think it's all swords and slashing and stuff like that, there's a lot of reading to it. There's a lot of character stuff in there. Conan is pretty much Conan in the entire thing, but at the same time, there's just it's good stories overall. And the first 85, I believe, are the ones that are worth to get, according to my brother, as far as the artwork goes, anyway, because the guy called Steve Buscema draws it up. And there is a difference after number 85. It's kind of like, almost like SPI, the war game company, how after, they have a magazine called Strategy and Tactics, it kind of, after number 86, it goes to decision games. And some people, it's, they like it or they don't. I kind of like the original SPI myself. But anyway, you guys probably are more role players than SPI guys. But anyway, what I'm going to go over with you today, though, is the last in the Conan series that I promised. This one's going to be about the Sourcebook. So today, I'm going to be going over with you why everyone should be using the Conan Sourcebook for GURPS from Steve Jackson Games. Now, a little preface here. I have definitely missed the boat on Conan. I'm just like a lot of things that I've been researching, of just what I'm uncovering that I'd never seen before. Because the only thing I knew about Conan, which I enjoyed, were the movies, right? Just the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And I was too young to really super appreciate number one. I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong. But then number two came out, and of course, that was more action adventure. That's a Dungeons and Dragons movie. I don't care what anybody says. That's not even Conan. It's definitely a Dungeons and Dragons movie, but I enjoyed it. And then when I got older, I enjoyed number one even more because it had more deeper meaning and things that I just didn't catch when I was younger. So I really appreciate that. But these books really did a nice job of explaining to me more about the world setting, and so does this book right here, the Sourcebook. One of the most fascinating things that I did not know about the entire world, because it seemed like, okay, they're taking a lot from Earth, right? There's guys, there's sultans, they even have some Egyptian mythos in it. I'm like, well, boy, they're just taking right from it, aren't they? The thing is, it is Earth, and it was just an alternate Earth. Somehow, somewhere in the time of Egypt, some kind of cataclysmic event happened, and there were seismic shifts or something like that, and the world just changed, physically, but people survived, and they survived with their cultures pretty much intact. If they didn't change, they changed the names of everything. All the countries changed. So, but they still had their own feel. It's kind of like what Harn did for, Harn World did. They basically took, in their year is 720, but what they did is they took medieval Europe, switched things around so all the medieval societies would kind of clash with each other a different way. Like, borders would keep these guys away from these guys, but there's a way that they just switched it all around. So now you can encounter all the medieval societies a lot easier. Now this society can clash with this one. And that's what Conan did, because all these societies are in there. GURPS Conan was written by Curtis M. Scott, and most of the interior artwork was done by Butch Birchman, which we can probably see down below. I'm guessing that's him. But the thing is, it's really good interior artwork. The thing about interior artwork is got to be a balance, at least in a game. In the comic book, that might be different, but in a game, you don't want it to distract too much, I think. It's too easy to get distracted by way too much prettiness and overproduction when you're just reading the rules, right? That's what you want to be immersed in. However, you don't want the artwork to be cheap and rushed either. And I really think Butch Birchman got the balance right here. So more about that cataclysmic event. It actually happened in 1800 BC, and it was actually Atlantis. There's the sinking of Atlantis, and it existed in this world setting, and along with another land called Lemuria. Now, obviously, they had all the technology; they were an advanced society, and when they sunk, all of a sudden, everybody reverted to barbarism, and they just kind of, that is the Conan world that you see. Now, the important thing here is, especially when I look back at a lot of these 1970 games that come out, even a lot of the fantasy stuff that they have science fiction elements to them. You see that in movies and everything. So you have a Dungeons and Dragons society, but all of a sudden magic is actually science. And you see that in a lot of it. Some of it, when I read these, the mages and sorcerers, it's pretty much stereotypical. They do some words and they throw some powder on a sword, and all of a sudden they can command the sword to do all kinds of things. But there's things that definitely lend itself to, there was technology that's been uncovered by these kind of smart guys, but they still don't know what the heck they're doing, right? And that seems to be a constant theme in a lot of the 70s games, probably because of Conan the Barbarian being a huge influence. There's a section on Hyborian religion which really states that there's no overt miracles in the Conan world, but they all reference gods all the time and they believe in them. It's just a matter of philosophy and how that affects them, basically, is how it goes. However, if you want to make it work and as a real thing, that's up to you. But they give you all the information on, if you want to do clerical magic, but also all the gods and pantheons. So you always hear Conan talk about Crom and Mitra. This way, now you can find out more about them and what they're actually praying to and for. Now, I want to go over something here before I show the next section of GURPS Conan here, because Keep on the Borderlands is one of the classic modules of all time for Dungeons and Dragons. It's the most basic module, a good module, but very basic. But all the classic modules in Dungeons and Dragons have this little disclaimer on the bottom that Wizards decide to put on it. They say, we, Wizards of the Coast, recognize that some of the legacy content available on this website does not reflect the values of Dungeons and Dragons franchise today. Of course, they're talking about some material that was pretty insensitive and stuff, and I agree that it exists. Drums of Fire Mountain was a module that actually depicted orcs with bones in their noses and looked like Zulu tribe warriors, basically. I can honestly say I can understand why people, that was a what were you thinking moment, right? The problem I have with this is twofold. One, they make that claim on every module. Again, B2 Keep on the Borderlands, you want to throw out what was wrong with that one? They put it on everything to imply that all the old stuff is bad and anybody who played it was bad. Not a fan of that, and they haven't retracted it yet. Two, the complete hypocrisy, because guess what? Drums of Fire Mountain, oh, it's available. Give us your money. We hate it. It's terrible. Give us your money. You can have it, though. Not really classy, Wizards. Not really classy. So anyway, I don't think you really believe in what you say you do. So anyway, the reason I want to go over that is because if you think that's something, wait till you read Conan, The Lands of the Hyborian Age, Chapter 5. Now, the reason I preface this so much is because, I wonder how many people's heads would explode if they read Lands of the Hyborian Age. I mean, remember, what Howard did was he took all the cultures and pushed them all together at the time and just said, interact, right? He pretty much made the Epcot Center for Conan to go around. Instead of traveling the world, he can just travel his own neck of the woods, right? But man, prepare yourself, because tell me if this doesn't raise any eyebrows. So we start off with the land of Antilia, which is basically the Mayans, okay? They're not in Mexico, they're way over here instead. And how do they explain it away? They say they're actually Atlanteans, but they were ruled by a religious faction who worshipped evil demonic beings such as the cult of Zotli, and what did you think they did? They sacrificed human beings. Go figure, right? And of course, it keeps on going. Then we have the Aquilonia, which that doesn't raise an eyebrow or anything like that, because it's the medieval knights. And basically, they have picked uprisings like in real life, and then they have civil war because of feudalism and everything. So those can be played as well. So nothing bad there, really. But we're going to get to it here. So there's a few things: pirates, border kingdoms. And they're talking about Samaria and stuff. Well, then we got Darfar, the home of the cannibal tribe of Yog. We're getting there. We're getting there. Then we have the Hykanian warriors, which are pretty much the Mongol tribes of China, coming to give a visit. And you got to understand that he is not. He is changing these things in name only. It is basically with a few things, but basically it's the society just brought on over. Almost think it's almost a cheat. It's like he created this whole world, but it's really our world. To a point. So it's pretty interesting. Then we got the Iranistanis. Okay, they talk about Iran. They come from Iranistan. Go figure. I mean, it's exactly what you think it is. It's Persia, at the time. So you got all that. Then we get the really wild stuff coming up here, and that is Kush and the Black Kingdoms. Now, this one, I mean, they literally call it the Black Kingdoms, and they're not being cute with the name or anything like that. It is really the Zulu tribes. That is exactly what it is, without a shadow of a doubt. Even in the books, people reference them as the blacks, and of course, the Kush and the Black Kingdoms refer to everybody else as the whites. So it all depends on the temperament of how you're speaking, if it's derogatory or not. But it's to them, it's just a thing. But it's definitely something that I think anybody who read this might just cry foul right away, without giving it a second thought. Chapter 6 goes into the Conan campaign, which is a really small chapter, actually, but that's also because a lot of things that Conan does in his adventures are based off of some of the basic things of every Dungeons & Dragons campaign, at least in the early days of D&D. You got warfare, thievery, every so often up throwing a wizard. I mean, the thing is, a lot of people attribute Lord of the Rings as a big contributor to role playing, and that's it's deserved, and especially because of orcs, right? Because that's a mainstay. But the Conan campaign, the way it's structured and how it feels, was just as much as an influence, and I don't think it probably gets enough credit. Hyboria magic is super rare, and that makes a lot of old school players pretty happy. Not only is it rare, but it's also very school based. Like if you are, from the school of Skelos, this is the only book that you have. These are the only spells you know. It's kind of like that. So if you are a part of a cult or something, here's the spells you can pick from. You can't pick from everything. And that's kind of cool. It makes it specialized. And since it's rare, that doesn't not make sense. Now, the only thing that I really kind of wish they would do, they didn't. And I can understand why. Because of the science fantasy possibility element of Atlantis that says this has got to be where the power comes from. But how did this come to be? How did these wizards work? But that's the whole point. It's mystery. I mean, are they computer commands, or are they based on some kind of crazy technology? You never really know. But that's okay. That's part of the mystery. Now, as far as rules go, the most important thing in GURPS Conan is the mass combat rules. And this is important for me because mass combat rules are not in the GURPS 3rd edition, which I prefer. And GURPS 4th edition actually has a separate book on it. The only thing about that separate book for 4th edition, written by David Pulver, by the way, is the fact that it covers all tech levels, okay? While this one really just focuses on the medieval kind of fantasy swords and such like that. Same thing with Horse Clans. The mass combat rules is in the Horse Clans supplement as well. But yeah, the 4th edition really goes off the deep end on it, and it actually can make it feel like it's a lot more complicated than it actually is. The thing is, you're figuring out, it's not a war game. You're just trying to figure out who won for the day, who lost for the day, and what happens to the player characters. You roll a few dice just to simulate the entire thing for one day of battle. Okay, and it's really not that bad. It just talks about true types. There's a little bit of a learning curve. The only problem with it, and it's not a problem, it's just something you have to deal with. It's just like any of those other rules for like jousting or anything. If you're not using it all the time, you almost have to relearn it. Every time you use it. Now, maybe for Conan, in a Conan campaign, you would use this a lot, but it's not exactly hard at all. It just has just a little bit of everything in here, and it just covers it well. And to finalize everything all out, actually, is that they have at the end a character summary, not a sheet, but a summary of all eras of Conan's life, starting when he was a thief and then going all the way up to where he's king of Aquilonia. The only thing I really wish they did is two things. One, and this is no surprise if you've seen the solo adventures, that they made these character sheets instead of just a summary. I know that they're trying to give some information on the background there. So, and this is before the age of PDFs, being so abundant. So, print was considerations, keeping books smaller if they can for cost purposes. But also, I wish they would have given point values of how much the total point value of Conan is. We all know it's around 500 either way, but I would also like to have seen like it be bold, things be boldened, and saying, hey, this is a new skill he gained, or he gained points in these skills or something, or this was taken away, he doesn't have this disadvantage at all, maybe, or whatever you got bought off. But either way, I would have liked to have seen that just because of the transition. And of course, we got the women in Conan's life everywhere from Belit to Valeria, Queens and Zoba, and then the friends and enemies, just other NPCs that he's met along the way. Really good stuff here. And I think everybody should grab it. If you think Lord of the Rings has a lot to influence role playing and fantasy role playing, well, so does Conan. And so I think you should pick it up. You can get it at Warehouse 23. Thanks a lot, everybody, and I'll see you next video.